Hola.
Hi.
Bienvenidas a Super Mamás.
Super Mamás.
This is Paulina.
And this is Bricia. We're moms and sisters.
I have two beautiful girls, Krista who's 4 and Sabina who's 1.
And I have a handsome baby boy, Eduardo Santiago. And we welcome you to the Super Mamás Sisterhood.
We're here to help one another, inspire one another, and support each other through the ups and downs of motherhood.
I hope you guys enjoy the show.
Okay, ¿listas?
Here we go. Hi, Super Mamás. This is Bricia. And this week in the podcast, my sister and our guest, Melissa Huerta, open up on sexual abuse. This episode was tough to record, but I just want to thank them both for being so brave and for touching so many people's lives through their story. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Hello.
What's up, everybody?
Hi, mamas.
Hello.
How is everybody doing?
Hope everybody's doing good. Good.
How are you doing, Paulina?
I'm doing good.
We have a pretty
Intense.
We have a pretty intense episode today.
Yeah. We do.
It was really hard to figure out how we're going to do the intro to this one because
Yes.
it's a pretty hardcore subject.
Yes.
I first of all, I didn't even know that you went through it, so that was kind of like a shock to me.
I know.
Because you've never even who have you told?
So before you, the only person that knew was my husband.
Before me and the listeners.
Before me and you knew, and I told Fernando, our brother. But before that, I had only told my husband and my therapist. That was the only two people that knew in the whole wide world. I just feel like I am going through this healing journey.
Mm-hmm. With therapy,
not just overall in my life. And I just feel like when this came up in therapy, I was like, I talked about it and everything. I was like, oh my God, this is something that it's really holding me back. I think throughout my life, I've covered up so much things and lied and, hide things. And, like that's the way I used to be.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, I used to be like that because I don't know. I just felt like I didn't want people to see me. I don't even know. I think it was a mechanism to like a survival mechanism or something like that. I don't know. I think, so this was one of the things, I never said anything because I felt like if I did, it was going to be my fault or I was going to be punished or something. So when this came up, it's a huge thing. It's a very big thing. And it's always been in the back of my mind, but it's always been locked away so very far that I don't think about it. But when this came up, I felt differently this time. And I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to share it and for me to bring some closure. Mm-hmm. And then I found out that it happened to other people, like close friends of mine. And then I started realizing that more and more people had gone through it. And I was like, this is it. Like I have a venue and I have the privilege to have a microphone in front of me. And if I can put it out there so people can be more open about it, then I'm going to put my little 2 cents. And then we found this super brave mom that had reached out to us, and she actually shared her story with me. And it was right around the time that I was like figuring this whole thing out. And I was like, this is perfect. Like she should come on the show, and she's willing to come and talk about it. So let's do it, So that's why it is hard to talk about. But I think it's very important that the conversation gets started.
Yeah. I think so too. And she's such a brave soul. You are too. I still don't know the story of what happened to you. I know you don't feel like sharing it right now.
I just want to tell mom and dad first.
Before you put it out into the world. Which is like also very, it's,
I don't know.
Well, you're going to have to take it today because the episode's going to air tomorrow.
I know. I have to tell them today.
Did you think about that before?
Yeah. I mean, I was planning to tell them before, but I just never had the opportunity. Like, hey, mom, what's up? Hey, so guess what? You know, like, so I don't know. It's gonna be hard to tell mom and dad, but like I said on the show, and just I think that's the hardest part. Telling mom and dad. I think that's gonna be really hard.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to the show, ladies, and it's a very tough subject, and it's also a taboo subject in our community. But I am thankful that Melissa was brave to come into the show, and I'm thankful to you that you were able to open up. So let's get to the show.
Let's do it.
And we're back.
We're back.
And our special guest is here. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you guys for having me.
No, of course. After you were explaining to me how chaotic your life is currently, I'm like, oh my God, how did you find the time to be here?
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah,
thank you for coming.
being here.
No, you're welcome.
And introduce yourself to our listeners, please.
My name is Melissa Huerta. I am 29 years old, hitting 30. And
Girl, don't even.
I was born and raised in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles.
East LA, what?
Yeah. And right now I'm living in the San Gabriel Valley. I have 2 kids, Sophia, who's 4, and Mateo, who's 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married. We got married in 2010. My husband Alfredo, we got married in 2010, and we met in 2005. So we're going on 11 years actually being together.
Oh, wow.
And I work as a legal secretary / receptionist for a legal services program. And my life revolves around my kids and my husband. That's pretty much it.
Amen, sister. Amen. So you reached out to us a few months ago,
Right.
right?
Yes.
After an episode that had aired, and you really opened up to us, and we thank you so much because
Thank you.
I know that the topic that we're going to talk about, it's hard to it's just hard to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And my sister was like, we got a message from this listener, and she explained it to me, and I'm like, wow, that's really hardcore. Like, are we ready to talk about that? And she was like, yeah, we should definitely, because, she's not alone. I mean, I think my sister went through a similar situation. So, and I think it was after we went to the We'll Grow Summit, right, Paulina?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That we heard Jenny Rivera's sister, who took out a book, talk about what happened to her. And another girlfriend turned to me and told me that she'd been molested. And then my sister told me that she'd been molested. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then you wrote the message. So we just really want to create an atmosphere where when we're open about everything, and allows listeners to connect with other listeners and be like, you're not alone. So can you tell us the story?
Yeah. So my mom had me at 15 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and she had my brother at 17, and her and my dad were together. Honestly, I don't remember up until how old I was, probably about 5 or 6. I don't really remember. But once they separated, he would still come around, not as often, but sometimes. And so we would, spend some time with him. And it was sort of, it just sort of just happened. We would watch movies, and he would just get close to me, and he would put his arm around me, and then eventually, like, it would just get closer and closer to my private areas, and then it just it just was like a whirlwind. Like, it just happened once, and then it happened again, and then it was just a normal thing that would occur. And it was always just exterior,
Right.
but nonetheless, it was obviously inappropriate.
No, of course.
Of course.
And I didn't say anything for a very long time to my mom. I don't know why I didn't, because she always had a very open relationship with me. It was always like, and she would talk to me about it. It wasn't like if it was a subject that wasn't talked about, even at a young age, like she would always tell me, you know, you protect your body, nobody can touch you, you know, all of that, doesn't matter who it is. You tell me if something happens. I don't know if it was because it was just a fear of he's not around as much anyway, so if I do this, he's not going to be around at all. And just that connection that you want to have with your dad, that sort of stopped me from saying anything. But one day, and then eventually he just stopped coming around, you know, he was just gone. But we knew of him. We always knew of him because we actually have family in common. And one day it just came out. I just told her. And I think I was like in the 4th grade when I told her, because I was really young when I told my mom. Yeah. And I remember being scared. I remember telling her, like, please don't tell anybody that this happened to me. And, you know, she comforted me. I remember her crying. And then I remember the next day at school being called into the principal's office. And I was so scared because I was never called into the principal's office. Right. And I remember there being a police officer there, and, you know, they started talking to me about what had happened. And I remember feeling so angry at my mom. Like, I told her not to say anything to anybody. But she explained to me, like, we have to protect you. And, you know,
but you didn't understand it at the time.
At the time, I didn't understand it. And we actually went to several interviews with police officers, and they asked me all kinds of questions. And it was really hard for me at that age to explain, you know, everything that happened, and to just remember. I remember feeling so nervous that what I would say wasn't always the same story.
Right.
Although the events that happened, like, I can explain them to them, just because I was off on 1 or 2 things, then eventually they decided that I probably wasn't a good person to sit on the stand against him if they had to press charges against him. So, you know, eventually they decided not to press charges. And because of that family we have in common, everybody found out. You know, I know that he knew. I know that, you know, my family from his side found out. And then, you know, the comments of, oh, her mom made her say that started. Or that wasn't true. It was all lies. And, you know, I clearly remember hearing that and thinking, how could you say that? Like, no, it's not a lie. I wouldn't make this up. And, you know, my mom having to protect me from all of that negativity that was surrounding it. And so even till this day, although my family knows, it's still not talked about. Right. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's still not talked about. It's really never brought up. I haven't talked about it with my mom in a while, actually. You know, but it's always in the back of my head. Like, I'm always extra protective of my children because of that.
Course,
yeah.
Of course. I feel you. I think it's always in the back of my head. Like, I have to do something for things to change. You know, what am I doing? I'm always looking around. I'm always like, I always feel like I have an extra side of fear inside of me with my kids. You know, like whenever something goes on, like now that even more like Krista is like older, and, you know, like we're talking about body parts and everything. And whenever she's like, she tells me something like, oh, or I see her like she's scratching or something, I'm always like, what's wrong? What's going on? Tell me, like, you know, are you okay? Like, does it hurt or what happened? Like, and sometimes maybe there's really nothing there, but like, because of everything that happened, I can't help but to be fearful all the time. And it sucks, you know, because with your children, you don't ever want them to go through that kind of thing. And it's just a fear that it's always in the back of your head that you can't control.
Yeah. And I think that something that I struggle with now is that I'm not sure what limits I need to put on my kids to protect them, where I'm not sort of like depriving them of certain experiences, but at the same time, you know, I don't know, you know, your family, you trust them, you love them, but what do the statistics say?
Right.
who does most of the abuse, right? It's usually people close to you.
Right.
So I'm always just like, okay, should I allow them to do sleepovers? Should I allow, them to spend time alone with my children? And am I being too protective? And am I then, depriving them of those memories? Because I remember having sleepovers with my cousins, and, those were some fun times.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. Just like my mom always talked to me openly about it. Even then, I wasn't able to just tell her as soon as it started.
That really surprised me that you say that, because I think that's the one thing that I'm actively trying to change, like having a open conversation with my child about that, and like just be open. But like just hearing you and saying like that didn't help you talk about it. It's like scary, it's scary because you try to give them the tools, but what are those tools? What are the tools that they need to have? And also with the sleepovers and everything, the same thing, because my parents didn't allow us to have sleepovers ever, and that still happened to me. So I'm like, does it really matter that I don't take them to sleepovers? Like, is it helping? Is it not helping? It's just so much.
Yeah. My mom has always been really open with me about every subject I would ask her. She would be candid and open with me, always. And so that definitely helped me growing up in all aspects. If I had a question at school that I would hear people, when it was like junior high and they would talk about like sex and this and that, I remember going to my mom and being like, Mom, what does this mean? They said this. And she would answer it for me. She would say, this is what it is. But
so your mom is pretty progressive, I would say, for her time.
Yes, because she didn't get that from my grandma. So, my mom, she had me at 15. She went through being a teenage single mom, and she felt that what the lack of communication that she had with my grandma affected her in one way or another, and she wanted to sort of change that with me. So she was always super open with me. She talked to me about, sex and safe sex but don't do it. It was always like, I always had that information. If I had a question, I went to my mom. So we are really close till this day. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just feel like I wanted to really put this subject out there because I was so surprised that day that we talked about the We All Grow, because I was sitting in a table with, I don't know, like 6 women, and out of the 6 women, 4 had gone through the same thing. And I remember, like, after I read your email, and I asked 2 of my friends, well, I didn't ask them, right? But I was talking to 2 of my friends about this, and they were like, oh, me too, and me too. And I was like, what the I was telling my sister, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is so scary that we need to talk about this. We need to do something. Like, I just feel like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Why isn't anybody saying anything if like a really high percentage of women, or even men, I'm sure, within our culture had gone through it, but that fear that other people put in them, or
shame,
and we are already in an age where we're having kids. So let's do something, because before our kids get there.
I mean, have you ever even told mom or dad?
I haven't told my parents. They're gonna find out probably after this.
Yeah. So I mean, and you're 30 plus.
Yeah.
And you still can't talk about it to your parents.
Nope. I think I told you recently.
I still don't know the story, to be honest with you.
I told my brother recently. I think the only person I really knew was my husband. But it's hard. Yeah. It is hard. I mean, I'm sure it was like much harder for you because it was your father, but it just hurts me. Like, hearing your story and everything just hurts me. And just remembering talking to my other 2 girlfriends, my other 4 girlfriends, because 4 of them, and my other 4 girlfriends told me the same thing, and they all cried. And I was just like, how come nothing is being done, nothing's being said, And it's just a very scary situation. And now that you're a mother, and I'm a mother, and I'm like, how do I put my kids in a bubble so none of this can happen, right?
Yeah,
you just
it's impossible.
It's
That's the
impossible.
thing.
Right. And also I guess, I mean, and also I think that it's important that as women, we empower each other
Right.
to, if not, maybe a 4-year-old, 6-year-old girl won't be able to understand like what that is. But the sooner we empower girls, the sooner they'll be able to speak out, the sooner the healing will begin.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because there's certain things that you just really can't avoid. I mean, I can't even imagine what, and it's fear. I think every parent, because they've had some sort of, maybe not experience to the extent that you have, but you know, sometimes it's like, as a parent, I don't know if it's just personally, but our minds always go to like the worst case scenario
Always.
automatically, like
Always.
no matter what. It's like, and that's the way we are. So like if we see something with our kid, we automatically think of the worst case scenario for some reason. So I think that's a very hard thing for it to go away. I don't think like I don't know if we're like engineered to always be surviving, you know, like just thinking of the worst. But I think it is important that women, young women, speak out as early as possible. Just so, I mean, I don't know if you went through any therapy for this, but so they can go to therapy, so they can speak through everything and just kind of get all those feelings of shame and all those things out of them.
You know, and I did go to therapy, thankfully, after I told my mom. I don't know how, I was too young, but I remember, I don't know like how she came in contact with the therapist or the services that were provided to us. But I remember I went to therapy, my mom went to therapy, and my brother went to therapy, all regarding it. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I think that's why I can talk about it.
Right.
You know, I'll be honest, I have told a limited amount of people. My husband knows, my family knows. I think I've only ever told one friend, even my closest friends. This is probably how they're going to find out. Because although I can talk about it, I sort of feel like, how do you bring that up? Like,
How do you bring it up?
how do you say, oh, by the way, you know, you should know this about me?
The only reason why this came up was because somebody was on stage talking about it. And then we kept talking about it, and then this came up, right? And otherwise, I don't know if it happens to you, but with me, it's locked in a part inside my brain so far away that I don't ever want to think about it.
Yes.
Like, it's not like I'm going through my day thinking about what happened, you know? So that's why I guess like you never try to bring it up, because you want to forget it.
Yeah.
You want to forget it ever happened. But you're right. Like, so that's like my struggle, my personal struggle is like, how do I make my daughters, because I have 2 girls, how do I make my daughters do that? How do I make them tell me, what do I do? You know, basically, I don't know. And I'm going to therapy too. And I, talked plenty about this with my therapist. And I think that's why I told my sister, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about it. Let's do it. Because I think same thing. My parents don't know. They're going to find out. And you know what my biggest fear is about my parents finding out is just like, I don't want them to feel bad for themselves. Like, I don't want them to go through that pain as parents, because they don't know, and when they find out, it's gonna be so hard for them. I think that's my biggest fear, because like my husband knows and he already knows, and but I just feel like about the hurt that my parents are gonna go through, and that hurts me. But I also think like I have to, because that way, I think that way I'll just heal. And I think that's the only thing that I'm missing. I just need to tell them and then just get it over with,
Yeah, and I know that that's something my mom struggled with, and she may still be struggling with.
Right.
Is because now that I'm a parent, oh my God, the way I think about things is so different. Like, I had these crazy ideas before, and now that I'm a parent, I'm like, I can relate and understand my mom so much better.
Right.
And so now putting myself in her shoes, I can't imagine my daughter telling me that and what I would feel. And, just that feeling of I didn't protect my daughter the way I should have, or
Yeah.
somehow, as a parent, you always put the blame on yourself and it's your fault, you know? And, I can't imagine what that feeling is. And, my mom is a really strong person. She doesn't talk a lot about her emotions. But I know that it's something she's struggled with even now at my age. But if anything, I think that the main reason why it's important to talk about this is because I still feel like it's a very taboo subject. It's something that it happens to more people than we think. And yet, like you said, Paulina, nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. The subject is just kept quiet. And it's not good for our children. I personally know of a male that it happened to.
Me too.
So for even women to talk about it, even, with males, it happens to everyone. It's everyone. It's not only girls, it's everyone. And I just feel that not until we start talking about it more openly will any change come out.
Yeah, it's not only for like, I have girls, but it happens also to boys, and I think it's harder for boys because since they're boys, and you're like within our culture, boys are supposed to be strong and they're supposed to be so macho and they're supposed to be this, so it's so much harder for men to talk about it because the shame is like 1,000 times more, because you're a man. And it sucks for them too. I'm sure there's more people that we know that have gone through it and just will never say because they don't want to have that label, because it's also a label, it's a label that you put on yourself, and you're walking around with this label, and you don't want people to feel sorry for you, like, oh, you went through this, so,
or to judge you.
Yeah.
Because I have heard, it hasn't happened to me, but I have heard of people being told that, oh, you only say that for attention, or you want attention, you want people's pity, or, things like that. And it's like, no, why would anybody want that kind of attention? Nobody does.
No.
Doesn't matter, what kind of attention or the amount of attention you're getting for something like this. I'd rather not have any. I'd rather have no one know me. Like, it's not for that.
It's shameful. It's shameful for someone. It's just shameful. And until now, I understand that it wasn't my fault. I was a child. I was a child. I was like 8 years old. I was a child. And when you're a child that young, so innocent. And I don't even remember. Like, I don't even remember what I felt. Like, I don't remember what I felt. I don't. And I'm thinking, what was going through my head then? Like, what was I thinking? What was happening? And I think I just didn't think about it for so long, and I tried to just put it away for so long that now that I'm trying to deal with it, it's hard to like bring back those memories because I've tried to bury them so far behind. But I think it's so important that we're here talking about this.
Yeah, I remember just being disconnected at the moment. Like, I was just disconnected. I was thinking about something else. Like, the TV was usually on, so I'm like watching the TV and I'm just disconnected, not even like really there when it was happening. And then it was done and we'd go about our day like nothing happened. And I think that's the way I think that was sort of like my survival mechanism. It was just disconnect, and then it'll be over soon, and then we move on, and then we'll go get ice cream or we'll do something fun, and that was it.
Right. It's tough. It's a really, really, really tough subject. And like, what are you doing now with your kids to, because I know you live with your in-laws and your brother-in-law and your sister-in-law, and there's cousins and there's there. So what are you doing now?
So with Sophia, because she's a little older, she's 4, we always talk to her about her body and about how, it's only for her. Nobody can see her body. She needs to protect her body and she needs to respect her body. And I always tell her, like, nobody can touch you. If somebody touches you, you tell me, or you tell daddy. And we always tell her that if somebody wants to touch her, that she needs to tell them, you need to ask my mommy and daddy for permission.
Oh, that's a good one.
And then, and if they don't ask mommy and daddy for permission, then you do not let them. And I told her the episode that I heard you guys talking about only the doctor and so forth, I've added that into it.
The doctor,
So thankfully her doctor, when we go for her physicals, her doctor turns to me and says really loudly, "Mommy, is it okay for me to check Sophia?"
Right.
And then I say yes, and then
great.
she proceeds.
That's good.
But that's just the thing. I'm just always reminding her. And sometimes I feel like, is it overkill? Am I doing it too much?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I just sort of feel like I have to. Like, I have to keep reminding her that her body is private and that, especially right now at her age, I don't know what, but she's going through this stage where she loves dancing around, like we're
like
getting ready for bath.
Like a normal girl.
Yeah, and she's dancing around and looking at herself in the mirror and, all this stuff. And I tell her that's fine to do here at home, but don't ever do this out, anywhere else. And you have to make sure nobody sees you. And,
I know I started telling her because like she would start changing by the window. Like take off her clothes and I was like, no honey, you need to close the blind so like people outside don't have to see you naked, like if you can be here but close the windows. And she's like, okay. So now she goes and closes the window. She's like, I'm gonna change now, Mom. I'm like, okay. She got it, she got it. And
it's such an interesting period of their lives, right? Because it's at the same time you don't want to like say you can't do that or shame or make them feel shameful of anything,
right?
But you have to be protective of them.
It's hard to draw the line.
Yeah.
Between like being protective and just being like crazy, And also like my daughter, my daughter's 4 also. But she just found her parts and she loves to touch herself, like, so I have to be super like open and just act like nothing's happening. I'm just like, cool. I don't know. And then sometimes she just has conversations with me and I'm just like, and the other day I was like, well, why don't you go to your room and then come back? And she was like, no, it's okay. I want to do it here. And I was like, okay, then I'm going to go to my room and I'll be back. So I left her watching TV or something. And then just, and then I came back later and she was, no, but it's true. Because
but yeah, what are you going to say? Don't do that. And she's going to feel like I can't tell you if anything happens there because,
Because I remember like my aunt, my grandma, my mom, like people are like, ay, cochina, déjate, no te toques,
Yeah.
So you start feeling like, oh, I'm nasty. I'm like, I'm not supposed to do this. Oh, it's bad. So now I'm really trying really hard to not make it a big deal. But she's also like learning to wash her vagina and she counts to 10 when she washes herself. And, I'm always like, and she's like, right, mommy, nobody can touch me, right? And I said, no, only me or daddy or the doctor. And we have to be there. And I was talking to another listener that she's like a sex ed. And she was telling me, she brought something up for me.
Sexual educator.
She was telling me, sometimes kids ask things and we overthink it. Like sometimes she put an example that said, hey mommy, where did I come from, or something like that, right? And the mom was like, well, dad and me, he told her the whole story. And the little girl was like, oh, that's interesting because my friend came from New Jersey and my friend came from California. And the mom was like, oops, I oversaid, things. But, I think because we just want to we're like, oh, we need to prepare them so much that we just like, do you feel like sometimes we put too much information on them? I don't know. What do you think?
I'm just kind of taken aback from everything we've spoken about and trying to like, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the right answer.
I know.
I don't know.
No, and I also feel like now that that Bricia knows, and she's like, oh, that happened to my sister. Now I'm wondering like if she's like, oh my God, my son more than before. Or
well, I think like I always think, again, we always think of the worst case scenario. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's such a, I think like when I'm having the worst time at like wrapping my head around, or the hardest part of is like an adult, the other person that's actually making, you know what I mean? Like doing the
the abuse.
The abuse. Like, how do you know if your friend could be that person? Or how do you know if your cousin could be that person, or your neighbor, or your friend? Or do you know what I mean? Like, how do you, I mean, I don't know. I don't, that's kind of like how could a person do something like that? I think it's the toughest question for me to understand.
Yeah.
And as adults, you know, I think I've heard of like kids to other kids. I think that's pretty normal, right? Like curiosity, right? But like, if it's an adult, you know, an 18 and over person, you know, that understands what's happening, I don't understand how people like that exist. So like, that's the thing that's hardest for me to understand. Like, my mind isn't going to like the kids. It's more like, who are these?
Why are we even talking about this? Like, why is this even happening to anybody?
Right. That's sort of like the thing, you know? I mean, I think like that's something that we should continue to talk about for sure, and open with our kids about. And I think all we can do is give them the tools.
Right.
But like, how can we get to fixing the actual problem, which are these people that are doing the abuse?
Yeah.
Like, how can we stop these people from doing that, you know?
But we don't even know what they look like.
No, I understand. But I mean,
no, I know.
What is it that, you know, is it maybe that they went through the same thing when they were kids? Is it like a cycle? Is it like being in the room all the time and looking for like things like, that's weird that guy did that. Maybe he shouldn't be around my kid. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but then like, are you always like judging other people around you, and like with your kid, like, don't go over there?
Yeah. You know what I did, like what I used to do, and I stopped. I used to always look at the sex offender registry around where I live. And then I knew exactly where everybody was, like where they were living. But then again, I was like, it's so improbable that those people that are registered are going to come to my house. You know, I think it's more probable that a person that I know that I'm not aware that's doing that. But like, I was always overthinking those kind of things. Like, oh my God, where are the predators around my house? And I mean, that's one way you can find out who's around you. But all the other people that haven't got caught yet. You know,
well, not just that. One thing I'm pretty passionate about is that sex offender registry. And this might come to a shock to you. But I feel that registry is too broad. Right. Too many people that are labeled as sex offenders or child predators or whatever, pedophile. Too many people are people that made mistakes, maybe with older, quote unquote, children, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and they're labeled in that same.
Or they were drunk and they couldn't hold their pee, so they went to pee by the bush.
Yes.
And now they're sex offenders.
Yes, and that's a subject that really fires me up, because I feel like we're focusing our attention on the wrong people. Right. You know, it's the people hurting our children. You know, I'm sorry, but when I was 16, I knew what I was doing. I might not have had the best judgment, but I knew what I was doing. You know?
When I was 17, my boyfriend was 25.
Yeah. You see, like, I mean, that's the way I feel about it. And that may be because maybe I haven't gone through it with my daughter being 16, or, you know, I don't know. But I just feel like we need to definitely focus our attention on the people doing the real damage, you know, to our children. And the registry, I remember going on it. I've been on it, but I consciously made the decision not to continue.
Me too.
Just because I felt like it was just making me more paranoid. Oh, yeah. And I would be walking down the street and be like, I think that's him. I think that's the guy. And then, you know, it's like, it probably wasn't. It probably was. I don't know. But you didn't hurt me or my kids. Right. You know, so that's just my take on
no,
that.
It's true. But like I said, it's just like, you can't help it. You know, I used to, and I don't anymore. I stopped. I was like, I can't live like this. So I consciously too decided to stop searching for predators around my house. But it's true, like, you know, like I was reading the statistics, and it was like it could be your friend, your cousin, your brother, the grandfather, or whoever. And I'm like, oh my God, like these are the people that I'm trusting my children the most, like that are supposed to be the people that I'm supposed to trust, and I can't even trust them. I was like, oh my God, you know what? It's shocking. I'm like, so who am I supposed to trust? So when parents approach me at school and they're like, oh, you know, can we have a sleepover? I'm like, no, we don't do sleepovers. You know, that's one of the reasons why, because I'm always freaking out of what's going on. I don't have any control of my kids outside of my house.
Yeah, you know? I've allowed my oldest Sophia to sleep over her my mom's house, you know, family, her godparents and so forth. Other than that, I haven't yet, and thankfully it hasn't come up. I don't know how.
I don't know if I can do it.
I don't think I can.
I don't think I can. Maybe like when he's like 16 or something.
It's just like here in LA, US, it's very common for people to have sleepovers all the time, like more than I know that in school they have sleepovers all the time, and I'm like, I don't know, you know.
And I feel like it's becoming more common.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, everybody saying, my mom says I can't sleep over, but you can sleep over at my house. And everybody had the same answer. So therefore, nobody could sleep over anybody's houses, right? But I feel like now it's more common that parents are allowing it. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You know, I feel like friendships are being cultivated in a much stronger way that way.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, it's always that thin line. Like,
Right.
what do I do?
I'm going to Skype sleepovers. So I'm going to get computers, and I'm going to get every kid to Skype in and they can just all be in. I'm going to get my baby to Skype through her friend's house. I think that's how I'm going to do it.
That's a good idea.
Okay, let's take a break. And then we come back. We're going to come back with our patterns segment brought to you by Seventh Generation. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back with our segment Patterns, where our fabulous guest tells us a generational pattern that you want to break. So, Melissa?
I thought about this, and I was going back and forth, but I think that the pattern that I want to break is that thought that people that are family can treat us or mistreat us as they wish because they're blood, and we're supposed to just get over it.
That's a good one.
I feel
that's a great one.
I feel that so many times things have been said to me, done to me, to my family, to my kids, and I'm just expected to just sort of shrug my shoulders and keep going and just act like it didn't happen.
Right.
And I think that that's really the reason why a lot of us have so much frustration or even anger, because we don't talk about issues. And I don't know if this is only like a Latino thing or if it's just everybody in general, but you know, that's a problem that I struggle with. It's like if something happens that you don't agree with the way they treated you, something that was said, or even if an argument breaks out, don't just sweep it under the rug and next time you see that person act like it didn't happen.
Right.
Or don't just stop talking to them.
Right.
Like talk about it and say, you know what, when you said this is the way it made me feel, or whatever it is. And even if it leads to another argument, just keep having those conversations until it's dealt with. I feel like we all have so many unresolved issues because we just allow people to treat us anyway because they're family. Oh, porque es mi mamá. Oh, porque es mi hermana. O es mi cuñada. Or I don't care who you are.
Right.
You do not have the right to treat me that way.
Right.
You do not have the right to disrespect me or my children that way. And I've had this conversation with my husband because it's something that he struggles with. Even just speaking about emotions is a struggle for him. So talking to anybody about the way they make him feel, or even talking to me, is a difficult thing for him. Or sometimes, you know, he'll tell me, sometimes we just have to let things go, or, you know, and I'm like, I'll let it go when it's resolved.
Right.
I can't let it go if it's not resolved.
Yes.
You know?
You're right.
And
it creates unnecessary drama within the family when you don't talk about it.
When you don't talk about it.
Right.
And it creates those feelings of resentment and of anger. And I just feel like we need to just be done with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so tired of feeling anger or feeling frustration when it might be that the other person may have not meant it in that way, or maybe they did, but we need to give ourselves the opportunity to have closure within ourselves and to understand within ourselves that a lot of times we can't control what other people say or think or do, but I can control the way you make me feel and the way I come out of this. So honestly, if it makes you uncomfortable or not, I'm going to bring it up to you and I'm going to tell you the way I feel.
Amen.
And
you have been to therapy.
and that's, you know, and if you can't handle that, then I'm sorry, but you need to start working on yourself too.
Right.
You know, because I've had a lot of situations in my life where I've been told, like straight out told, get over it. That's your so-and-so. You have to deal with it. No, I don't.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't. And I don't need anybody actively in my life that I don't believe is being a good positive influence. If you're going to bring negativity,
Right.
I don't care who you
And
are.
I think
you know?
I think even more so when it's family, then you should have those conversations and this resolvedness, if that's even a word, because you guys are part of each other's lives forever, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is blood, you should resolve them,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like, just don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that so many times I've heard people say, you know, about strangers or about coworkers, about whatever, like, I don't allow anybody to treat me that way. So if you don't allow a stranger or a coworker or somebody treat you that way, why do you allow someone that's your blood to treat you that way? I feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I'm a lot harder on my own family just because they're my blood. Like, you're supposed to love me, or you're supposed to be there for me unconditionally, or like my husband's family, like you're supposed to love him and be there for him. Why do you treat him in a way that you wouldn't even allow a stranger to treat you?
That's true.
Right. You know, that's just that's what I think I need to work on the most, is just being honest and straight out about things, and you know, hoping that a good resolution comes in the end. But if it doesn't, then at least I'm good with it. I said my piece, and you know, we can move on.
That's a good one.
Amen.
Thank you, Melissa.
That's a great one. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
It's a great pattern to pattern. For more information about Seventh Generation, please visit their website at seventhgeneration.com. And if you guys have a pattern that you guys are working on, don't forget to upload your picture on Instagram and hashtag us, Super Mama Generation. Let us know how those pattern to patterns are coming along. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
And we're back with our favorite segment. We're back with our Super Mama pick or tip of the week. Melissa, you go first, since you're wonderful, beautiful guest today.
Thank you. So I couldn't choose between a tip or a pick, so I'm
Do
gonna
both.
do both.
Yeah.
I'll start off with the pick. I breastfed both of my children, and I remember while nursing them, when I was nursing on the breast that I wasn't nursing on, when the letdown would come up, so much milk would come out, and I felt like it was just being wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it would go into the milk pad thingies that I would put on, and I kept thinking, this is going to waste. Like, I'm doing so much work to have this milk, and then all this is going to waste. So I started researching, and I found a product called Milky's Milk Saver. And what it does is you put it in your bra while you're
cup,
nursing.
right?
It's sort of like a cup. And
It's sort of like a diva cup for your boob.
I didn't think about it that way, but it's true. There's like a little hole where you like put your nipple in, and then when the letdown comes down, all of the letdown from the breast that you're not feeding on, it all goes into this cup.
Uh-huh.
And every nursing session, I would collect 1.5 ounces to 2.
Right.
So if you put that together on how many times we nurse, I would get a good 6 ounces a day just from this.
Just from the letdown of the other boob.
Yeah, not including having a pump. So
that's a great tip.
I would keep that in the fridge. And, you know, when I went back to work, I had that. Plus, you know, when they start eating cereal, I would use the milk instead of water or juice. So that was...
I don't know why Cheerios came to my mind. And I was like, breast milk with Cheerios.
my babies had that.
I tried to give it to my husband, but he wouldn't eat it.
Drop it in the protein shake.
I promise it's sweet. You're going to love it. It's like, never.
And your tip?
My tip, keeping on with the breastfeeding subject, I remember so many times when I started breastfeeding feeling like giving up. It was too hard. With my daughter, it was hard because it was my first time. I didn't know what I was doing. And with my son, just having a toddler already and the demands of breastfeeding plus taking care of another child was really hard. Every day I struggled with feeding him. And I remember reading one time to don't ever give up on your worst day or on a bad day. Don't give up on a bad day. Because when we're not having a good day, a lot of times we make decisions out of emotion and it's not really what we want. If we decide to stop breastfeeding or whatever it is, it doesn't even only apply on breastfeeding, but if we decide that this journey is ending, we should do it on a good note or on a conscious note, that we consciously make the decision that I'm done. I've done what I can and I'm at peace with it. Because if we give up on a bad day, it's all out of emotion. And I think that that's where the regrets come and
that makes so
the
much
guilt
sense.
comes.
So much. And that's a great tip.
Yeah.
So,
you're right.
So many times I felt like giving up, but I was having such a bad day that I would say no. If tomorrow's a good day, I'll give up tomorrow. But if it's a good day, then you don't want to give up, right? So then you just keep going. Yeah.
That's
until
good.
eventually you get to the point where you say, okay, now I really am done.
Right.
And
That's gonna be good for a lot of moms that they need to hear that.
And you're right. You should apply it to every aspect of your life. Paulina?
My tip, I have a beauty tip this week. I started using Peter Lama's products a while back when they were gifted to us at an summit that we went, an event. And I love all of their products. But
I do. Me too.
Yeah, they're so good. But the one that I'm going to pick this week is the Youth Revival oil for the hair. It's for damaged hair. And you just put like 3 drops of it on your hair when it's damped after taking a shower or even dry. And I have noticed such a big difference with my ends. I used to have a lot of, what do you call this one? When they're
Split
open?
ends?
Split ends. Orzuela. And then after I started using it, I really don't have any. Like I went to cut my hair like 2 weeks ago. And my hair guy, Sal, what's up, Sal? He was telling me that I had none. And I always have some, and I didn't have any. I hadn't cut my hair in like 8 months. So he was like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have any split ends. And I was like, yeah, it's working. So the Peter Lama's Youth Revival all-in-one hair complex. I will post a picture on Instagram and put the link on our website.
Awesome. I like it too. I love it. Mine's going to be a tip for all you mamas out there. So my baby is 13 months officially. And he, like a couple weeks ago, he used the potty for the first time.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he went to the bathroom.
Right.
The teacher sent me a picture of his poop twice.
That she shared with everybody.
That I shared with everybody. I sent it to my mom. I sent it to my dad. Sent it to my sister. I'm like, look, he took his first poop. And so then I went to buy a potty seat. But, so here's my tip. So the one they have at school is a baby Yorn, but from like 7 years ago, where the potties were only one piece. Now all the potties have 2 pieces to make it easier for the parents.
Right.
So you take one piece and then you take it out. So because it's 2 pieces, the babies, when they sit down, it moves. They get scared and they don't want to go in it. Or the baby is sort of like playing with it and like just kind of wants to take it out of the seat. So what I did is because I got one with 2, and then I learned that, and then, you know, the teacher told me, like, try to get one that's 1. I was going to go and buy another one, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to need to go buy another one. Like, what's wrong with you, Bricia? So I got 3M double-sided tape.
Oh,
but like the very strong one, like, you know 3M, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like super thick, like super powerful double-sided tape. And I put it all around it, and I stuck the second piece on it. So now it doesn't move.
Oh, that's
so
great.
now, like, even if I lift it or not, like, it became essentially a one piece. So now,
how's it for cleaning?
well, you just have to, you know, lift up the entire seat, and
That makes sense.
con tu mano, with your hand, you just really wipe it
You
clean.
scoop it out?
You scoop it out with your hand and just lick your hand off at the end.
At least use a plastic bag.
Oh, use like those doggy bags.
No, I
that
mean,
you
of
can pick up poop.
Okay, you guys, I'm kidding. Okay, I'm not really swiping with my hand. Come on. I love my child, but I don't know. Poop is where I draw the line, especially nowadays.
Right? I remember, like, at the beginning, the first episode, you're like, I could eat it if they asked me to.
I remember that, and I remember
one.
I remember feeling that same
poop.
way. I remember being like, this poop is so sweet. Like, it smells so good. Like, and my husband and I would look at each other like, is it weird that we think our baby's poop smells good? And I've told, like, other people, and some people are like, yes, it's true. And then other people are so grossed out about it. And I'm
because there's people who have their kids are older.
Yeah, I don't think my kid's poop is amazing.
Like, I wouldn't eat my baby's poop
now,
anymore.
Now, no way.
Like,
no,
right
only
now,
when they're babies and it's still like yellowy.
only like the first month.
The mustard.
The first, like, the mustard seed poop. After you start going with the solids,
Oh, yeah,
no. Nah, I wouldn't do that anymore. But yeah, that's a great tip. So now we're gonna start doing the potty training at home too, and hopefully de aquí a un año, yeah.
Yeah, it takes
He's
1
already-
year. It takes 1 whole year.
I haven't even started with my son.
Oh,
I'm just dreading it. I'm just putting it off. But he's starting to tell us when he wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's time. But oh man, I'm dreading it so much.
It's just hard.
I know it's hard. I'm just because I do it at school and he's already done it twice at school. I want to continue it at home. So I'm just I'm like, all right.
Reinforcing
right,
it.
baby.
Well, that's your show for today, ladies. Thank you, Melissa, so much for coming
Thank
and
you.
for being
We
so
have
brave.
You have a variety of subjects that we could talk about.
I know.
Such a strong woman. Thank you for coming. Thank you
And
for sharing
your
your
husband
story.
is so blessed to have you in his life, and his kids, your kids, both of you guys' kids are just incredibly lucky to have you as a mom. I
Oh,
mean, they're
thank
going to
you.
be so strong, and do you know what I mean? Like, with you next to them, they're going to be able to conquer the world because you're just such a strong woman. And I'm so thankful that you came into the show.
No, thank you guys for having me. And when you guys first offered for me to come, I sort of felt like, but I don't want to say I'm no one because I know I'm someone, right? But I'm like, I don't have a blog. I don't have my own business. I don't, like what?
Girl,
who
you're
am
a
I?
strong-ass woman.
You are.
But
we didn't even get to talk about everything, but let's just like really briefly say Melissa's husband suffered an accident at work. So he is a stay-at-home dad, and she's the sole breadwinner of the family. She went through this. She has gone through miscarriages. Like, she has gone through it all. And she's here standing tall. So you are a super mama. You're so strong, girl.
Beyonce will be proud. Strong
Thank
women.
you.
Strong
Thank
women.
Strong woman.
trying to set an example. Thank you so much, guys.
Of course.
Thank
And
you for coming.
don't forget to, if you want to know more about Melissa, you have an Instagram account,
Yes.
right? What's your Instagram?
do. It's Melissa HC23. And I just post mostly about my kids. So
No,
if you
it's
guys wanna
fine.
see
No,
my
So
it's
do
kids-
I.
So do we. Everybody.
Everybody.
We're going to post your Instagram account and pictures of you on our website, supermamaspodcast.com. And also don't forget about our Super Mamas social
Yay!
that's coming on July 9th. You guys get your tickets.
Get your tickets. Kids do not need tickets. People have asked me if kids need tickets. If they are 12 or under, they do not need tickets. So kids going for free, guys. Don't forget. After nap time, before bedtime. So there's no excuses. We will see you there July 9th. Get your tickets. Supermamasocial.com.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram.
at _Super Mamás, Facebook, Super Mamás Podcast, or website, supermamaspodcast.com. And if you go under contact, there is a direct link to our closed group. So join us. It's fun in there.
It is fun. It's fun, right, Melissa?
Yes, I
Yes,
really
it
enjoy it.
Yes.
All right, ladies, we're out. Thank you, Melissa, once again.
Thank you.
We will see you all next week. Super Mamas!
Super Mamás!
Bye. Bye.